I lie beside him, watching him sleep, his face soft and calm in the early light. We'd only been dating for 6 months, but he felt like home to me. Safe, easy, fun. Until out of nowhere, he started dropping these weird comments. At first, it was sweet stuff like, "You're so cute, I could just eat you up." I'd laugh and we'd cuddle, no big deal. But the jokes kept coming. The other night, he told me, "You'd taste amazing with some eggs and toast," and I laughed again. But something about the way he said it, it was like he actually meant it. And it didn't stop there. He'd whisper things about pan-searing or roasting, and he'd bite my arm or thigh, a little harder each time, telling me how good I'd taste. His eyes got this serious, hungry look that made me feel, well, nervous. I kept trying to play it off as his weird sense of humor, but the details he added made my skin crawl. Last night, he got even more intense. We were cuddling, and he was holding me close, his face next to my neck. He kissed me softly, then whispered, "Maybe tomorrow I'll fry you up. Just a little butter, a pinch of salt." I tried to laugh it off, but it sounded shaky. "You're kidding, right?" I asked, trying to look casual. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me with this slow smile, like he was savoring something. Finally, he murmured, "Maybe. Or maybe you're just delicious." In that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. The way he looked at me wasn't how he used to. It was like he was picturing something in his head, something I wasn't in on. I spent the whole night wide awake beside him, wondering if it was all just a joke, or if maybe he meant it. I don't know what to do now. Do I talk to him? Or do I just leave before he takes this hungry love thing one step too far? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a second, I thought about just letting it go, convincing myself that everything would be normal again if I didn't make it weird. But as I shuffled into the kitchen and saw him standing by the stove, flipping a pan of eggs with his focused, careful look, I felt my skin crawl. His eyes flicked up to mine, and he smiled, just like any boyfriend would. But all I could think about was the way he'd whispered about frying me up. "Morning, beautiful," he said, setting a steaming mug of coffee in front of me. His smile seemed warm, but my stomach twisted as he placed a plate of food down next to the coffee. Eggs, toast, and a side of crispy bacon. The smell filled the room, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I forced a smile and took a sip of the coffee, feeling his eyes on me. "Thanks," I murmured. I could feel him watching, waiting for me to take a bite of the food he'd made. So I reached for a piece of toast, taking a small, cautious bite. The silence stretched between us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was reading my every move, every flicker of expression. So, about last night, I finally said, trying to keep my voice casual. He didn't miss a beat, his fork pausing just before he took another bite. He looked up, his face perfectly neutral. "Yes?" He cocked an eyebrow, that same slow smile spreading across his face. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep eye contact. It was intense, I guess. Kind of freaked me out. I tried to laugh it off, like it was nothing. Just me being silly, making a big deal out of a joke. "Oh, come on," he said, laughing. "You know it's just a little joke. Like saying you're so cute, I could eat you up. Isn't that what people say?" "Yeah, but most people don't go into detail about cooking times and sides," I shot back. I tried to sound playful, but I could feel the edge in my voice. He tilted his head, looking almost amused. "You're right. I've probably taken it a bit far." He took a long sip of his coffee, his gaze never leaving mine. "But I don't know. It's kind of thrilling, isn't it?" "Thrillings?" I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. He shrugged, setting his cup down with a soft clink. "Just the idea that we're so close, so connected, that I could practically absorb you. Like, make you a part of me, forever."
My heart hammered in my chest.
This was beyond a joke now, but he looked so calm, so matter-of-fact. I stood up, barely managing to keep my hands from shaking. "I need some air," I mumbled, grabbing my jacket and heading out the door before he could respond. I wandered through the park for hours, replaying the conversation over and over. This wasn't something I could laugh off anymore. My brain kept racing, my mind drifting to all the small things I'd brushed off before. The way he'd watch me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his hands lingered, gripping just a bit too tight. I kept telling myself he was just intense. But now, all I could feel was a mounting sense of dread. Finally, I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. My best friend, Sarah. She picked up after a couple of rings. "Hey, what's up?" Her voice was bright and casual, and for a moment, I felt a rush of relief. I wasn't alone in this. Someone else would understand, make it make sense. "Sarah," my voice wavered, and I realized how shaky I sounded. "Can you meet me somewhere? I really need to talk." We met up at a coffee shop, and I told her everything about the jokes, the details, the way he looked at me. Sarah listened quietly, her face growing more serious with each word. Finally, she set down her cup, leaning in close. "Look," she said, her voice low, "I know he's your boyfriend, but it's not normal. You shouldn't have to feel scared like this." I nodded, feeling a knot of relief and fear tighten in my stomach. "I don't know what to do. It's like he's obsessed with it, and I don't want to make him angry, but I can't just ignore it anymore." Sarah was silent for a moment, then reached across the table, her expression determined. "Come stay at my place tonight. Let's just get a little distance, see how he reacts." Sometimes guys need a reality check to realize when they're crossing a line. It was a relief just to have a plan, even a small one. I texted him to let him know I'd be staying over at Sarah's, leaving out the part about needing space. Just a casual girls' night excuse. He replied quickly, the message short and simple. "Got it. Have fun." But there was something about the way he phrased it that made my skin crawl. That night, I lay awake on Sarah's couch, feeling my phone buzz every hour or so. Messages from him, ranging from "Hey, thinking about you," to "What are you doing and are you awake?" Each one sent a chill through me. There was a strange urgency to them, like he couldn't stand the distance. I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. In the middle of the night, another message came through. This time it was different. "Did you know your apartment key is missing?" I bolted upright, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. I hadn't noticed it was gone. I hadn't even thought to check. But now, the realization hit me like ice water. He had my key. He could come in any time he wanted. And then the final message came, just 2 words, "Sleep tight." The next morning, I convinced Sarah to come with me to my apartment. She seemed on edge too, glancing over her shoulder as we made our way up the stairs. I half expected him to be there, waiting outside my door, but the hallway was empty. I unlocked the door with a spare key I'd found, stepping inside slowly, half expecting some horrifying scene. Instead, everything looked normal, except for one thing. On the kitchen table, there was a small note, written in his familiar handwriting. It simply read, "I just wanted to taste." Sarah read it over my shoulder, her face going pale. "You can't stay here," she whispered. I nodded, feeling like my whole world had shifted, like I was living in some strange, surreal nightmare. I packed a bag, throwing in essentials as quickly as I could, my hands trembling. As I zipped up my bag, I felt a strange sense of finality. This wasn't just about a joke that had gone too far. This was something else entirely. As I walked out of the apartment, I realized I hadn't locked the door behind me. But I didn't care. All I wanted was to get as far away from him as possible. For days, I stayed with Sarah, barely able to sleep, feeling like I was being watched. I changed my number, blocked him on social media, but every so often, I'd see a familiar shape out of the corner of my eye. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of him in the distance, his face half hidden, watching. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I didn't see him anymore. No messages, no sign of him. Just silence. But the note, those words, they stayed with me, echoing in my mind. I just wanted to taste. The fear faded, replaced by a kind of haunted unease, like I was carrying something with me that I couldn't shake. In the end, I left the city. I moved somewhere new, somewhere where no one knew my story. But even now, as I walk down unfamiliar streets, I catch myself looking over my shoulder, expecting to see his face in the crowd. I don't know if he's still out there, watching, waiting. But I know one thing for certain. I'll never forget the way he looked at me, that strange, hungry gleam in his eyes. And sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if he ever really let me go.